Hey, what's up everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Gwent, and today we're playing more of the Banished seasonal event, which is an alternate game mode in which after we choose our starting hand, our entire deck gets banished. Today we're trying another powerful anti-meta deck, so let's go give it a look. So today we'll be playing a Syndicate Congregate Firesworn deck that is designed to counter the Nilfgaard meta that we seemingly always run into in this event, which generally means cards like Tibor, which is a 13-point play because there are no cards in the other deck, and Imperial Golem, which is a 12-point play because, again, there are no cards in either deck. So the way we beat that Nilfgaard meta deck is by flooding our side of the board with as many units as possible and then boosting all those units as many times as we can. Importantly, that means we need a lot of time in round 3 to spawn in those units and boost them all. So strategy-wise, we will keep round 1 and round 2 as short as possible and keep round 3 as long as possible, because if round 3 comes down to a single card, then of course a 13-point Tibor is almost certainly going to win. So that means round 1 we are going to pass either after playing 1 card, or if we're on red coin, possibly even after playing 0 cards. That way we let our opponent win round 1, but they go a card down in doing so, encouraging them to dry pass in round 2, in which case we play a throwaway card, win round 2, and then have the maximum length for round 3. Then in round 3 we'll start with some earners if we have any, like Roderick, or the Firesworn Scribe to generate some coins. And we can play Bincy if we have her, to get boosted whenever we generate those coins. And then play a Fallen Knight to get boosted whenever we spawn in units, because that is going to be our next step. Alternatively, if we don't have a Fallen Knight, we can use the Eternal Fire Priest. Then we spawn in a ton of units with things like Hemmelfart, Helveed, Von Herst, Congregation, and the Eternal Fire Disciple. As well as, of course, our leader ability. So that means with enough time we can flood our board, and if we have a Fallen Knight, get a ton of boosts in the process. Once we have all those units on the board, we can use things like Irae to boost all those units. Similarly with Sacred Flame, and the Bone Talisman, and Zoltan Scoundrel in the range row, as well as Triss in the range row to get a Bone Talisman. So those are our big finishers, and because we can spawn in enough units to fill potentially both of our rows entirely, they are worth a ton of points, which in a long round is enough to outscore even the Nilfgaard meta. So let's go see it in action. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here, and they'll go first. Okay, so when we're on red coin, we might just pass immediately in round 1, unless if, say, we want to throw down something like Roderick to get a little bit of coins. Let's make sure that we have something that gets boosted when we spawn in units, though. So let's get rid of Congregation, and Sacred Flame is good, but we might get rid of Roderick here. Okay, we did not get the card I was looking for. They'll play Imperial Diplomacy, and they'll get a Street Urchins, giving them a little bit of monies. And normally what we would do here is we would play either an Eternal Fire Priest or ideally a Fallen Knight, which would be the key card for us as our primary engine for round 3, and then use Hemmelfart to get it back in round 3. But since we don't have either of those cards, we're in a bit of a tough place here, and Bincy will probably end up being our key round 3 engine. So let's just go with the Mushy Truffle here, and use that to get a Beggar, which will give us a little bit of coins and some carryover from Mushy Truffle, even if that's the only card that we play in round 1. So they'll go Bribery, and they'll get Zoltan, which is not very effective when both of us only have 1 unit out here. So they'll give themselves a little bit of a boost there. And although the first couple of cards that they've played have not been that impressive, it's important that we don't give in to the temptation to keep on playing here in round 1, because we beat Nilfgaard in a long round 3, but we do not beat them in a short round 3. So we still want to keep this short, so that we keep round 3 long. So they'll pass, and they'll take the round 1 win. They will play though. Oh, it's Snek boy, okay. So a little bit of a surprise in that case. Let's play a Firesworn unit because we want to have something that Hemmelfart can get back in round 3, so that could be an Eternal Fire Disciple or a Firesworn Scribe. I guess we'll go Firesworn Scribe here. And the thing is, that Snek is worth 7 points, so pacing-wise, we should use a couple of leader ability charges here so that even if they don't play anything else, we still have more points than them, so we don't need to play any additional cards. Actually, we should put these next to each other. Ideally, should all put them in this range row. I've successfully split them up as much as possible, minimizing the effect of the Golden Froth. They will continue to play. There's Tibor. So that is one of their biggest point slams, in fact, likely their biggest point slam. So I think what they're trying to do here is just do a tempo play. They're testing to see if we can keep pace with that, in which case, I think we do go with our other Firesworn Scribe. Now, these are pretty important cards, but because we can bring one of them back in round 3 with Hemmelfart, it's not the end of the world if we play both of them here. Then, we'll withhold the tribute, but we'll use another leader ability charge here, because that way we do have 3 units right next to each other, which means we can use Mushy Truffle, get all these guys boosted up, and it's just enough to tie them. So they'll go with their other point slam, so yes, they're going to continue to try to test us here. And pacing-wise, I'm afraid there really isn't a great option for us anymore. I don't think we have any way of catching them with just one card. So let's go with Bincy, because she is probably our best long-term engine, but she could very well become a target for their leader ability. You know, they'll pass, so yeah, they were just waiting for us to not be able to keep pace with them, so that we would at least be on even cards going into round 3. So now we need at least 9 points with 1 card. We have 6 units, so Bone Talisman is not enough. We'd very much like to save Hemmelfart. The easy answer is to say, go with Grand Inquisitor Helveed, which is definitely enough. I guess we'll go this route. Because if we spawn this in, we will be at more than enough points. Would have liked to have been able to save Helveed, but we do at least still have Hemmelfart for round 3. Okay, so now let's start with Hemmelfart. And we'll use Congregation to get all these Firesworn Zealots, and then convert one of them into a Firesworn Scribe. And remember, they do have the Snek, which is going to eat through our graveyard, which won't have enough time to get through all of it, unless they do additional stuffs to mess with that. They will go after Hemmelfart, and then they will seize that Firesworn Scribe with their leader ability. So in that case, let's go with the Eternal Fire Disciple, because we can use that to spawn in additional Firesworn Zealots. Okay, then it's Fangs of the Empire. Now, we're going to go pretty wide here, so poison's not the end of the world, although this Eternal Fire Disciple is now one of our only ways to get additional Firesworn tokens. Let's use them here, and now let's go with Sacred Flame. That's our other way of getting more tokens out, so of course we would love if they didn't have another source of poison. And at least at the moment, they do not. Damien is, of course, somewhat problematic, though. Let's use the Eternal Fire Disciple to get more tokens out here. And then either Desiree or the Bone Talisman are both worth the same amount of points here, so we'll go with this. And technically, we should save Sacred Flame in case we can get one more turn out of the Eternal Fire Disciple. However, they're probably, yep, about to seize him. Okay, then it's an Emissary, which technically would have been boosted by Bone Talisman, but not from Desiree, so a little unlucky there. But now we go Desiree, which will boost almost everyone, as will Sacred Flame. And we know they've played their biggest card, so what do they have remaining here with their last card? It's Doo-Doo. They don't have anything great to transform into, so we'll take the win, even after the intense bleed in round 2. Alright, so going up against Scoia'tael here, and they'll go first. Okay, so we have both a Fallen Knight and Hemmelfart, which is great because Fallen Knight is our key card that gets boosted whenever we spawn in units, and we're going to do a lot of unit spawning. And then if we play that Fallen Knight in round 1, then Hemmelfart can bring it back in round 2 or round 3. Eternal Fire Priest is basically a weaker version of the Fallen Knight. It may not be all that necessary if we already have a Fallen Knight, and Beggar is probably not all that necessary either. Something to be said for keeping it when we have Mushy Truffle, because then we can get the bonded ability to trigger on the Beggar, but I think that's still a little bit overkill. Second Fallen Knight, yeah, we'll take that. And maybe that means no need for the Eternal Fire Priest, and Bincy is also quite solid. A Dunka, so I'm not so surprisingly, it looks like the Invigorate deck is doing some hand boosting. And so I think we might want to keep this round as short as possible because we want a long round 3, and we of course want to minimize the amount of hand boosting to get from Dunka. So that means they'll take round 1. Now the question becomes, after they played one more card than us in round 1, do they dry pass here, or do they try to push? They will dry pass. Okay, so that means we could do one of two things. Either play a Fallen Knight and understand that Hemmelfart can bring it back in round 3. It will still cost us some coins to do so, though, so it's not a perfect solution. Or alternatively, go with Mushy Truffle because it has resilience, so we can get that Golden Froth in round 3. That's probably the answer we're looking for, so let's go that route. And the Beggar also gives us some coins, which gives us a tiny bit of carryover value heading into round 3. Okay, so let's begin with Roderick as a coin generator. He'll do some hand boosting. And then go with the Hamadryad is a little bit of a surprise. And now before we start spawning in all of our units, let's actually play Bincy in our range row to get boosted from us generating these coins from Roderick. Now it's another Hamadryad. And now before we start spawning in all the units, let's play the Fallen Knights because they'll get boosted whenever we do so. Let's play one here. And it's Shaping Nature. Okay, so that's a lot of vitality, I assume, is what they're going for. That will become a very big Hamadryad after all. However, the Wandering Treants could become a solid target for Desiree, so let's keep an eye out for that. But once again, before we spawn in units, let's play our other Fallen Knight. Okay, it's a Dryad's Caress, which is probably going to be, oh, I would have thought on the Treant. Well, I suppose they want the vitality on the Hamadryads. They're not as concerned about us triggering a death blow on one of their weaker units. So now, especially because we have at least 4 coins, let's use Von Herst because he will automatically spawn in a unit every turn. And that will, of course, give us additional boosts. Now it's Bountiful Harvest for more hand boosting. And it will give them some Harmony units. Now let's go with Hemmelfart. And we should have room to spawn in all these guys in the melee row. Okay, it's another Bountiful Harvest. And that'll give them a Sorceress of Doblatana, which is a potent card. Alright, now that we're actually on 9 coins, let's use Lieutenant Von Herst's ability to transform these Firesworn Zealots into Flaming Rose Footmen, which are a little bit stronger. We want to do this before we do any boosting, ideally, because you don't want to convert a boosted Firesworn Zealot, otherwise you might actually be reducing its power in the process. And also be mindful of not dropping below 4 coins, because that is the threshold for Lieutenant Von Herst to spawn in more of those Zealots. So now let's spawn in some more units as well. And actually, sure, we'll convert these 2. Then we use Triss. And with Triss... Ooh, okay, not an ideal option, actually. I guess we'll go Congregation, even though we really don't have space. And we didn't even have time. Ideally, would have done it in the melee row, but I suppose we do still have room to spawn in with our leader ability there. We were really looking for a Bone Talisman, but they had enough special cards in their deck that we did not get that option. We got flooded with some of their special cards instead. It's Filovandrel, which has gotten a lot of those hand boosts. So this is the thing. Although we do have a lead right now, they're going to have some of their biggest cards at the very end here, potentially including Torque and or a Glace, which could both be huge. Once again, before we do boosting, let's convert. And I think it is worth using Roderick's ability here to spawn in this Footman. And use our lead ability here to completely fill our rows, because that way we can use Desiree to destroy, I guess, this 3-power Elven Deadeye. Happens to work pretty well. Okay, so do they have Torque? Do they have a Glace? No, it's a Force Whisperer. So that's a good sign. They'll go after poisoning Bincy. Hopefully they don't have a second source of poison. But now we go Bone Talisman. That is, of course, a big source of boosts. And don't forget, we also have the Mushy Truffle. And I suppose we'll boost our melee row here. Oh, I also totally forgot to convert this Firesworn Zealot with Von Herst. But remember, don't do that once you've already done the boosting. Otherwise, this would get dropped from a 4-power unit into a 3-power unit. So that's no good. So that means we're done here. We do have a pretty big lead. It is maybe possible with a Glace for them to retake that lead, but the poison on Bincy will not be enough, so we will still emerge victorious. Alright, so going up against Nilfgaard here, and we'll go first. Okay, so we have a Fallen Knight, and that's going to be our key engine that we'd like to have for round 3. We actually have 2 of them, so that's amazing. And then we have Hemmelfart to bring one of those back. If we want to play one early in round 1 or round 2, we can use Hemmelfart to play it again in round 3. That means we're going to need ways to spawn in units, and Grand Inquisitor Helveed is our best way to do that. Congregation can do a little bit of that, as could Hemmelfart, but the Clerics of the Flaming Rose, they aren't the best at that, so let's at least swap one out. Bone Talisman is a great finisher. Maybe we swap another one out as well. Bincy, another good engine, but we need some spawners. And Beggar is not really what we wanted, so okay, that was not ideal. Would have preferred Bincy. But what we can do is we can play a Fallen Knight in round 1 because we can use Hemmelfart to get it back in round 3. So let's go for this, and then let's use our stratagem. And this is probably going to be the only thing that we do in round 1 because we want to keep round 1 and round 2 very short to leave a long round 3 because although Nilfgaard has some really good point slams, we can beat them in a long round. Villain Treadmirth is a little bit concerning if we were to play more, but we kind of aren't planning on doing that anyway, so we'll just pass here. Though Villain Treadmirth actually will still trigger here, so they can win on even. And yeah, that's what they do. So that means they'll win round 1. And they'll go with Sheilard Fitzoshlin, which is a bit of carryover, if you will, because now Helveed is going to be weaker in round 3 when we play him. But I was a little bit concerned. They actually did win on even cards in round 1, which means they could end up pushing a bit more in round 2 here. It might, however, just be generating a little bit of carryover with Sheilard Fitzoshlin and not much else. So let's go with Roderick first, because he will generate some coins for us at the very least, and then just to be absolutely certain that we have enough points on the board in case that is the only card they want to play, let's use 1 leader ability charge here. That way we have 6 points, they're 5, so even if they do pass right now, we don't need to play anything else. Coded weapons, we'll get rid of Roderick. And ideally, we would go with a Beggar and or Mushy Truffle. Unfortunately, it is not enough by itself to get the job done. But I think it is probably still worth going Mushy Truffle, which of course means Beggar. And then combining that with, again, a leader ability charge to make sure that we're keeping pace with them so that we don't fall behind and end up with card disadvantage in round 3. Toussaint Knight Errant is not a huge factor here. And now that we do have 1 Beggar down, it means our second Beggar is much more effective, although we actually overprofit in that situation. Technically speaking, we can play our other Fallen Knight because we could bring them both back in round 3 with Hemmelfart. It does start to get a little expensive to do that, so I'd rather not, but since they are pushing a bit here, that might be necessary. And it is enough points here so that we don't even need to use our last leader ability charge, thankfully. Okay, then Attorney Joust is, yep, gonna be on the Fallen Knight. And our only spenders here are either Hemmelfart, which we definitely want to save for round 3, and Helveed, which we would ideally save for round 3 as well, although we may need to use one of them soon here. So I think it is going to end up being Helveed. And with all these coins we have here, we'll spawn in some units until we have more points than they do. And we still have 3 units in a row, so we could use Golden Froth on them on our next turn if needed. But that's, of course, something that we would like to save for round 3. Imperial Diplomacy could be anything. It's a Salamander Assassin. And the reason why I really wanted to get Helveed down in this round, even if we would ideally have saved him for round 3, is because now we have a way to spend coins and not make all the coins we're about to get from this Beggar go to waste. So we'll save the coins for now, because we do have enough points. But, oh, they do take out Helveed, okay. That was, of course, probably to be expected, well, with the damaging order on this assassin. Bribery. It's Triss, which turns into another Imperial Diplomacy, which turns into a Tax Collector, which is probably just about meaningless to them. So we need at least 7 points here. We'd very much like to save Hemmelfart and probably Congregation as well, because those are 2 ways of spawning in additional units that we have remaining. That means it's either Zoltan or Bone Talisman. I guess we go Zoltan and boost our range row, which is enough. And the question is, how much more are they going to try to bleed? Assassination goes after Zoltan. And so now Bone Talisman would be enough for, once again, us to retake the lead. However, it would be worth more points if we were to use our last leader ability charge first. We'd rather save that as well. But I think we might need to spend a little bit more resources here to convince them that this is the place where they should stop trying to bleed in this round, because we very much want to save Hemmelfart and Congregation. So, yes, let's use it here. And let's use Bone Talisman. So that gives us a 6-point lead, and we really want them to stop playing now. But they will continue. It's Cadaverin. It's just 3 points they gain, so we technically still have the lead here. But remember, they have this last card. They have their leader ability as well. So we kind of do need to play, because otherwise they definitely have enough points to 2-0 us. So that means we should go Congregation here, and we'd potentially be able to save Mushy Truffle plus Hemmelfart for round 3, which may still be enough. But let's go Congregation now. So that gives us a 9-point lead. They do pass. Okay, so it all comes down to Hemmelfart plus Mushy Truffle against their last card and their leader ability. Alright, so here comes Hemmelfart, which turns into a Congregation, which with those coins we can use Hemmelfart's ability, transform some Zealots into Fallen Knights. Now, of course, at this rate, we don't really have anything else to spawn in, so it's mostly just swapping a 2-power unit for a 4-power unit, and then, of course, using this Golden Froth. So it's 17 points, but once you consider they have their leader ability and whatever this last card is, it's going to be close. But they can't do it. They'll pass, so we'll take the win. Alright, so going against another Syndicate deck here, okay, and they'll go first. Alright, so this may very well be a mirror match, and our hand is going to be perhaps the determining factor as to who wins this. So Von Herst is great, but we very much want to have a Fallen Knight, and we do not yet have one of those, nor do we have Hemmelfart. So let's get rid of Congregation, and there's Helveed, which is a great way of spawning in units, but I think that means we don't really need this Congregation anymore, and we do get a Fallen Knight, so that is crucially important. Alright, they'll start with Lieutenant Von Herst. That's pretty aggressive for round 1. So we may look to immediately pass and just say, congratulations, you sacrificed one of your best cards. Although with both Helveed and Von Herst in hand, along with even the Eternal Fire Disciples, not a bad way of spawning units, we have so many ways of spawning in cards that we are going to run out of space really quickly if we try to play all these cards in the same round. So I think what we do is we will pass here. And of course, that means they'll win round 1. We're hoping they'll drive past round 2, but even if they don't, we still have enough cards to sacrifice in round 2. Okay, so they will still play. It's Dire Mutated Hound. That is not a card that we have. But that is going to continue to get boosted by 2 every turn, so that could become a bit of an issue if we don't either get rid of its armor, which we could only do if we used Desiree on it, which is not exactly a card we want to be starting a round with, or we could go with what they did in round 1 and play Lieutenant Von Herst, which I think is what we need to do here. Although, we need to be at 4 coins for him to spawn in units every turn, so that means using a couple leader ability charges here, get up to a few more coins. Because at least this way, we do have a lead here. Technically speaking, they will get up to an 8 at the end of their turn. So they may pass at this point. Okay, they will pass. So that puts them up to an 8, which means we do unfortunately need to play one more card. That means if we go Eternal Fire Disciple here, since we do have another one of it in hand, it's not crucially important. It does also get us up to 4 coins, which is not a huge deal at this point. It does mean that, yes, we'll spawn in those units, but that's not going to matter much, because we still have enough points to win round 2. Okay, so let's start with our coin generators, those being primarily the Firesworn Scribe. And I think we'll withhold the tribute for now. Okay, they'll go with a Firesworn Scribe of their own. Now, before we start spawning stuff in, let's go with Bincy, because she'll get boosted every time we generate coins, and we're going to generate coins every time we spawn a unit. They're going to go Fallen Knight. That is probably our next play. So now let's go with that. And I suppose we can spawn in a unit here as well. Okay, now it's Azur Javid, which is going to give them the defenders, which, technically speaking, could be a target for our Desiree. It's not out of the question. I mean, we could still go for a Firesworn Zealot. That works too. But now what we do is we go Eternal Fire Disciple in this range row. And we can use this to spawn in more cards and get boosts and coins in the process. Now it's Congregation for them. That'll give them a lot of units spawned in. Now we go Helveed, which gives us a lot of coins, and we can also certainly do some spending here. And because we have this Firesworn Scribe giving us a refund of 1 coin every time we spend 2 coins to spawn in one of these Firesworn Zealots, it means we can do a whole lot of this. And apparently, get a contract completed as well. Okay, then they're going to use Helveed, so yes, it is a bit of a mirror match, it seems. So now let's go Zoltan in the range row and use him to boost everyone in our melee row, because that row is full. Okay, then it's Sacred Flame, which is going to be very effective for them. But let's reduce the effectiveness of it a little bit by using Desiree here to get rid of one of those Firesworn Zealots, and boosting all of our cards in the process as well. Okay, then it's Congregation. That is not ideal, because they are pretty much out of space there. So now we go Bone Talisman for a huge boost here, and it'll be interesting to see what this last card is, because I don't know if it's possible for them to take the lead here. That is the Sacred Flame. It is big. Desiree is their last card, but it is not enough, so we will hold on for the win. So there's an anti-meta Syndicate deck for the new Banished seasonal event. If you liked the video, then make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment down below to let me know which other cards, archetypes, and factions we should experiment with next. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.